All right, so we're back with another day on the EcoDiesel, the notorious EcoDiesel, because we're having lots of positive feedback from customers asking for more information. So while the cab is up doing this repair, because that's the right way to do it, let's talk about some of the neat things that you can now kind of see. A lot of other diesels, you get to see lots of stuff under the hood. These are pretty compact and covered up like we saw in one of our other videos. So V6 design, injection pump driven off the camshaft, just behind this shield. Lots of shielding on these engines for the actual noise. That's why you need to drive one of these, they're super quiet. If we come around the side here, get our video guy all lined up. This is your EGR cooler. And this is your turbocharger at the back. So you just like in a typical V6 engine, you have an exhaust manifold that comes up, drives the turbocharger. Subsequently on the other side, same thing comes in, drives our turbocharger. Our exhaust housing comes up and actually spools the turbine, which then of course drives the compressor. You'll notice we have a rod here attached to a motor. This is your variable geometry turbo motor. So this turbo can spool down and spool up to effectively keep the optimum size we want. Not a large turbocharger, but hey, it's not a large engine. Of course, then we have a crossover pipe that's currently disconnected that comes in and feeds your exhaust in your EGR cooler. You have a bypass valve for that. Flowing through the EGR cooler, we have the EGR valve, which is electronically controlled. So your exhaust gas, if it needs to be put into the intake for EGR, it'll go through the cooler. When the valve opens, it goes back up and directly into these. And that's where we get a lot of the carboning issues we've seen in other small diesel engines. So the less issues we seem to have on these are the trucks that do get used properly, warm them up correctly, not excessive idling, lots of highway use, potentially some trailer towing. You'll keep those to a minimum. Common rail we talked about. So we have our common rail injection pump that feeds a common rail in here. And from that common rail, we have our pressure control and volume control on the actual rail. And then of course we have our individual little lines down to the injector. Something neat to note on these injectors, and I'll use my pen light here, there's a little calibration key on every injector that you would ever put in one of these diesels. Now the EcoDiesel V6 is not the only one that has that. That is something that needs to be programmed. So for the guys that are doing a bit of this work in other shops and anybody doing it themselves, if you change an injector, what that means to you is your ECM needs to be told the exact part number of injector that you put in. These things are precise machines. You can put the injector in and it'll run, but not as precise or not as well as it needs to, and potentially that would harm the emissions as far as the amount of carbon that going into the engine. So neat little overview on this real quick, kind of give you some information, and once we get the other engine tore apart and tore down, we'll give you the final on this one, hopefully. Thanks.